Hey everyone, I'm Marianna, this is Impression Blend, and today we are continuing our discussion of David Fincher's filmography with 5 more films to review and rank. If you missed part 1 of this Fincher special, there will be a pop-up link for you right here, as well as always, in the info box below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Let me know in the comments how you rank David Fincher's films, and let's get started. After Zodiac, the director's next feature film venture was entirely different from any of his previous work. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button was a romantic drama loosely based on a short story under the same title by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The story of a man who is born old and ages backwards had a long journey to the big screen, with Universal initially buying the rights to do it back in the 80s. It went through a few director options, including Steven Spielberg, with Tom Cruise being seriously considered as the lead, and eventually ended up at Paramount, where it also went through a string of potential directors such as Ron Howard and Spike Jonze. Finally, in 2004, David Fincher entered the conversation and the film began shooting in 2006. While it may not have received as much love from the critics as Zodiac, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button brought Fincher his first Academy Award nomination for Best Director. It was nominated in a total of 13 categories in 2009, but only took 3 Oscars home for art direction, makeup, and visual effects. This was the first Fincher film I saw in theaters, and I have to admit I was not as impressed as I was hoping I would be. I remember thinking the visual effects were remarkable and the premise was interesting, but I didn't really connect with the story. Because of this, I was kind of dreading rewatching it for this video. I never had much interest in seeing it again, but I was so surprised by my second viewing experience. I loved it. Seeing it for the first time 12 years ago, I simply wasn't ready to understand and embrace this film's beauty and message. I completely misjudged it the first time around, and if you haven't seen it in years, I highly recommend you give it another viewing and look at it from a fresh perspective. Yes, this is a romantic drama, but it finds a unique way to approach the conversation about the life and death cycle, the value of life, the importance we place on certain stages of life, and the nature of time. It's also easily the most heartfelt film Fincher has ever made, and I don't think you could honestly describe any of his other films as heartfelt to begin with. Typically, his signature style is characterized by cold precision, purposeful camera work, and dark themes, and we love him for it. But The Curious Case of Benjamin Button feels warm and hopeful. It feels life-affirming. I really hope we will get to see this side of Fincher again one day. Now, I have never upgraded my rating from a 7 to a 9 out of 10, but that is exactly what I did on my second viewing. This film ended up a lot higher on my ranking than I initially thought it would be, because it is in my top 5 and it is right behind Fight Club. Watch it again. I am telling you, this is a beautiful story and it is unlike anything Fincher has ever made. And so we have finally arrived at The Social Network, one of the director's most popular films and the film that many consider Fincher's best work to date. But did you know that the movie's screenwriter, Aaron Sorkin, was initially supposed to direct it? The script was given to Fincher by one of the producers, and the director immediately fell in love with it, but would only make the movie if Sorkin was willing to step aside. Sorkin agreed, and we got a fantastic biographical drama about Mark Zuckerberg and the creation of Facebook. The film is incredibly entertaining, very tightly paced, and features some of the best and most quotable on-screen dialogue you'll ever hear. This is also where Fincher's wonderful working relationship with Trent Reznor Turner and Atticus Ross began. The musicians responsible for The Social Network's perfectly fitting and unforgettable electronic score have become the director's regular collaborators and so far composed the music for his every film since this one. I am not going to surprise anyone by saying I love this movie, and as far as repeat viewings go, this is Fincher's most rewatchable film. The combination of rapid-fire dialogue, driven performances, and impeccable editing give The Social Network an incredible sense of energy. All of this keeps you engaged from beginning to end as you watch the lawsuit unfold and the characters show their true colors. Of course, this isn't a documentary, and a lot of things were changed, embellished, or made up to fit the intended dramatic arc, which is something the movie's screenwriter Aaron Sorkin openly admits. The film's real-life subject, Mark Zuckerberg, wasn't the biggest fan of the liberties the writer took when it came to the true story, and famously said the movie only got some things right, such as his clothing. But the way I see it, we're all adults and should understand the difference between creative interpretation, which is what this is, and documentary, which is what this is not. I don't think these artistic liberties take away from the quality of the film, and I would easily call it one of the best dramas of the 2010s. The Social Network went on to be nominated and won plenty of awards, including 8 Oscar nominations, one of them Fincher's second Best Director nomination, out of which it won 3: Best Adapted Screenplay, Film Editing, and Original Score. As far as my personal ranking goes, I have to admit I swapped my top 2 films multiple times. I love both of them, I constantly rewatch both of them, and honestly, they both belong in the #1 spot. But I am going to put The Social Network as a very close second today, partly because even after multiple rewatches, I still find the film's ending a little bit abrupt. But it's a very close call for me.
Brutally excruciating.
For his next film, David Fincher returns to the crime thriller genre, and in 2010, he begins shooting an American adaptation of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the first part of the famous Nordic noir book series, the Millennium Trilogy, by Stieg Larsson. The film was initially intended to be the first part of a trilogy, with Fincher directing the sequels, The Girl Who Played with Fire and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, back to back, Steven Zaillian returning to write the screenplays, and the all-star cast coming back to reprise their roles. Unfortunately, those plans fell apart, and even though The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo works just fine as a standalone film, we will never see Fincher's complete vision for Lisbeth Salander's story arc. In this film, a twisted murder investigation led by an unlikely duo of a disgraced journalist and an asocial but brilliant hacker unfolds on a snowy Swedish island and involves abuse, misogyny, politics, and a rich family with plenty of dark secrets. Seeing this film for the first time in theaters, I was very skeptical because I am a big fan of the original Swedish adaptation of this entire trilogy, which came out in 2009. The new versions of these characters, particularly after Noomi Rapace's iconic portrayal of Lisbeth, and the stylistic changes were definitely an adjustment. Plus, considering there was only a 2-year break between the two adaptations, it was impossible not to compare them. I didn't love Fincher's version on my first viewing, though once again, I appreciated his efforts and I enjoyed watching him grow as a director. But I will say, after rewatching it for this video, I liked it more the second time around. The 2.5-hour runtime flows significantly better than it does in his previous crime thriller, Zodiac. The story is also more engaging, the slow burn setup feels necessary, and the way Fincher brings the threads of the story together on screen is fascinating to watch. But for this particular story, Fincher's style is just too sleek. Everything feels very polished, and it's easy to see why people are into that. I would normally see it as a positive as well, but that's just not what the original Millennium Trilogy is. If you read the original novels, you know that they come off a lot grittier than this, and that's something the Swedish adaptations captured perfectly. Fincher's version is missing that unique, authentic Nordic noir feel. And also the fake accent thing is ridiculous. In my ranking, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo sits comfortably at number 6. It's not one of my favorites, but it is growing on me, and despite any of the issues I have with it, there are a lot of things to appreciate here. Fincher's next film was another adaptation of a very popular thriller novel, Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. The author actually adapted her own book into the screenplay and was absolutely robbed of an Oscar nomination for it in 2015. This film got snubbed in multiple categories that year. Do not even get me started. What we have here is a gripping mystery about a wife who suddenly goes missing and a husband who looks increasingly more suspicious. Add to that a trail of clues, marriage problems, the dynamics of a small town, and a media circus, and you get a modern mystery thriller that you just can't look away from. Our meticulous director, who was already known for his perfectionism and attention to detail, shot 500 hours of footage over 100 days for this one, and it was very much worth it. Gone Girl was received very well by both audiences and critics, ended up being one of the most profitable films of 2014, and is actually Fincher's highest grossing film to date. The way I see it, this is not only one of the best films of 2014 and one of the best thrillers of the past decade, but also one of the best thrillers of the 21st century so far. The story is gripping and intelligent, its flawed characters are fleshed out and fascinating, the cast is perfect, the tension buildup is masterfully done, and Fincher's style is incredibly fitting for this particular story. I also love the way commentary on marriage and media fits into all of this, and on top of that, as a book to screen adaptation, this is as good as it gets. I will admit that I initially was a bit on the fence about the ending, but soon realized that this was the best way to wrap up this captivatingly toxic and twisted mystery. I would actually say that the way it was done in the film is better than how it played out in the book, with the film version really underlying the themes of the story. I've seen Gone Girl at least 4 times at this point, probably more, most likely more, and the more I watch it, the more I love it. I think those of you who have been following me for a while already know that this is one of my all-time favorite films, and yes, it is, in fact, my favorite David Fincher film. I did say that The Social Network is a very close second here, and yes, I do believe that these two films are Fincher's best work to date. But for me personally, the story of Gone Girl is just a bit more interesting. It's just so deliciously twisted. Okay, now I have to play the clip from the first video again.
People are perverts.
And finally, we arrive at Mank, the newest Fincher film, which is something so many of us have been waiting for since 2014. Stepping away from the thriller genre, this time the director takes us to the golden age of Hollywood, but this is definitely not a love letter to it. Mank is a biographical drama about Herman Mankiewicz, the screenwriter behind the legendary classic Citizen Kane. The film focuses on the time when Mank was writing the script, as well as provides its viewers with some context and the inner workings of Hollywood through flashbacks. The script was actually written by David Fincher's father back in the 90s and was initially meant to be filmed after the game, but those plans didn't quite work out, and unfortunately, Jack Fincher did not get to see his script on the big screen because he died in 2003. The film wasn't officially announced until 2019, and after a limited theatrical release in November of 2020, all of us finally have the opportunity to see it as it began streaming on Netflix on December 4th. This was easily one of my most anticipated films of the year, with Gary Oldman as the lead, a strong supporting cast, and the topic being Hollywood itself. It sounded like an intriguing and unusual thing for Fincher, and something that's destined to be a big Academy Awards contender. Yet again, we hear the stories of Fincher's determination to get that perfect take of every scene. One of the actors, Charles Dance, mentioned a scene that involved a drunk Mank requiring over 100 takes, and Amanda Seyfried said that she had to do 200 takes for one of her scenes, which took over a week to shoot. Of course, an immense amount of research and attention to detail went into the look of the film as well to give it that authentic classic Hollywood feel. But was it all worth it in this case? Yes and no. Mank felt like a beautifully executed technical experiment, and from that perspective, it is undoubtedly a success. It's a film that actually looks like a classic, something other modern directors have tried to recreate and failed. The technical aspects of it are stunning. It also features some very impressive performances. Gary Oldman is great, of course, but I have to say that Amanda Seyfried, Charles Dance, and Lily Collins all stood out and deserve recognition for their work. For some people, this is enough to admire and love this film, but we all know that technical achievements and execution are not enough for me. Mank left me cold, and it feels slow. And the reason it feels slow is because it's cold. To add to that, it seems that half of the potential story got left out for no particular reason, in favor of exploring the political climate of Hollywood. I swear I learned more about the politics of the time than I did about Mank or his writing process. For a film titled Mank, I really didn't feel like I truly knew who he was at the end of the film. This also gets in the way of the impact of the ending because developing the idea the conclusion is focused on just isn't something the film pays much attention to for the majority of its runtime. I liked the film, I appreciated it, it's good, and certain aspects of it are great, but it could have been so much more, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit disappointed by it. My ranking is obvious. The only spot remaining on this list is number 8, and though it might seem like a pretty low ranking for a film that's not bad at all, Fincher just has quite a few films that are a lot better and a lot more engaging than this one. I don't like that I have to end the video on this opinion, so in conclusion, I want to say that Fincher is one of the best and most interesting directors working today. His films are always a journey and a stylistic treat. They're always something to look forward to. He has done a lot of fantastic work already, and I am sure he is going to impress us again and again in the future. Even his films that I don't love still offer a lot for me to admire, and the ones that I do love are some of my all-time favorites. They are films that I come back to again and again. My only hope is that we don't have to wait another 6 years for his next film, though he did sign that 4-year deal with Netflix, so we shouldn't have to wait too long for for the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun for me to do, to revisit all of these films, to read up on Fincher, and I would certainly love to do more of these director-focused videos in the future. So I'm already planning my next one. Not sure when it's going to come out, probably sometime at the end of January or beginning of February, but definitely another one coming at some point soon. As always, a big thank you to all of my patrons who are supporting me on Patreon, and an extra special thank you to the patrons whose names are on the screen right now. But of course, a big thank you to every single one of you for watching this video and making it to the end. If you enjoyed this video, which I really hope you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, follow me on social media for all of my updates, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you had a great holiday season, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye!